Alright guys, what's up? It's Shatner, and today I'm bringing you my Fabled Quasar deck profile for the format immediately following the release of the Dark Illusion. So, I'm going to do something new this time. If you're just here to net deck the deck, which there's no shame in that, I'll put the link in the description. But if you want to hear some more in-depth combos with the Fabled to me to explain my ratios, I'll go into that here. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. So first off, we got the Waifu Squad, boys. We got 3 Grimro. She's the main searcher. Discard her to get a Fabled from your deck to your hand if you have a Fabled. And then we have 2 Fabled Crust. And Crust is the Monster Reborn. If she's discarded by any way, she gets a Fabled back from the deck. There are 2 very simple effects, but very powerful effects. And they combo very well with the other Fabled monsters, so we'll get right into that. Next up, we have 3 Nezuchi and 3 Chawa. These guys are your main playmakers. Chawa's like your #1 tuner. If you have Chawa in hand, you know you're basically good to make synchro plays. Very common, but very simple, very powerful play to do is to have a Fabled on field. Discard Grimro to get Crust, and then use Chawa's effect, discard Crust to summon himself out, and then Crust will bring back the Grimro, and you can make a Reagan from there, or a Librarian, whatever you need at the current moment. And these guys both have the effect where you can discard 1 Fabled from your hand to summon them out, as I just mentioned. But Nezuchi has an extra little effect where you can summon out any level 2 or lower Fabled monster from your hand when he's summoned. So that's pretty useful in one very specific circumstance. Let's say you have 3 monsters on the field, right? And you have Nezuchi in your hand, a Chawa in your hand, and a Crust in your hand, right? Now, Crust is mandatory. You can't choose not to activate her. And you want the Chawa on the field in order to make a Reagan with one of your 3 Fabled Grimros, or just any monster. You can use Nezuchi's effect, pitch the Crust, summon himself out. Crust is mandatory, so due to Sagok, she'll be put on Chainlink 1. Nezuchi's optional effect will be put on Chainlink 2, and you can bring out your Fabled Chawa, have 0 cards in hand, and be able to make a Reagan for 2 draws. So, very situational play, but a couple of times that'll save your butt. So yeah. I've seen people run 2, and their reasoning is, well, I keep on drawing multiple Chawas, and I have to discard Chawa for Chawa. And that seems wasteful, and I couldn't disagree with that more. As long as you're emptying out your hand and putting Chawa on the field, you're playing Chawa, right? Chawa's doing his job. He doesn't need to get like a plus 8 billion every time. You just need to empty your hand and put Chawa on the field. When you need to use a normal summon on Chawa, that's when you're wasting Chawas, you know? So, yeah. Definitely play the max of him just so you have enough discard fodder, you know? Next up, we have 3 Cerberus. This guy makes plays like no other. He's just a level 2 tuner, and when he's discarded to the graveyard by any means, summon him right back. Very useful with Nezuchi and Luri to make Reagan. Also very useful to make level 4s and level 6s with Hat Tricker and Grimro, stuff like that. Very good card. 2 Luri in the same vein. Again, a playmaker. This and this is just the easiest Formula Synchron play ever. Discard Luri to summon out Chawa. Luri activates in the graveyard, bringing himself back. Easy peasy. Lemon squeezy. Also, if you have these 3 in your hand, just discard one of them with Nezuchi. Use his effect to bring out the other, and the other one will trigger in graveyard. So that's an easy level 5 synchro play. Just very good, very good. And also in the same vein of monsters who summon themselves when discarded, it's Ganassia. Now, Ganassia, he's the weakest of the 3, which is why I only run 1. And the reason why is he banishes himself if he's summoned after he's discarded. That's not a problem if you like send him to the grave with Foolish Burial and then use like Ares Rock Sunrise or Crust to bring him back, but that can be an issue because if you make a Reagan using him and Cerberus, just keep in mind, do not desynchro that Reagan. You will not get the materials back. I've made that mistake so many times. But he does get a 200 attack boost if he's summoned by discarding, so that's kind of useful. And then next up, we have the weakest of the Fableds, Fabled Kishano. Level 3 tuner. If she's in your graveyard, you can discard 1 Fabled from your hand to add her back, but you really need her. It's easy enough to get her out of your hand. You can discard her for, obviously, Nezuchi or, Chawa. But she's also a great discard for 1/1, and she's the best normal summon in the entire deck. Like, she's the one monster you kind of want to normal summon, but she's, because just having the level 3 tuner is so important. But once she's in your graveyard, right, then that makes the Nezuchi and Crust play, which is typically pretty weak, because there's not much you can make with that. Once Once Kashana's in the graveyard, this play becomes really strong because that's just a 2-card Reagan right there, or a 2-card Librarian. And also, if we have like a Kashano, a Kashano on field, and these guys in your hand, that's an easy Reagan plus Librarian, which is one of the strongest first pushes you can have in this deck. Just use Nizuchi, discard Ganashia, summon himself out. Nizuchi's effect brings out Cerberell. Ganashia brings out himself. Use the Ganashia and the Cerberell to make Hyper Librarian, and then use these two to make Reagan. Just a very good play. Strongest first play you can make in this deck. It gives you 3 draws right off the bat. Very good. So you got to run the 1 Kashano. Also, when you're super into your combo, you can use Kishano's effect in graveyard. This is like when you have 6 or 7 cards in hand and you're approaching your 3rd Quasar. Just use her as a quick discard to like discard the Crust to bring back your Chawas, because you're typically running out of Chawas by that point. Next up, moving into the solo monsters, 1 Glow Up Bulb. Kind of the weakest monster in your deck, not gonna lie. It sucks to draw, but again, it's easy enough to get in the graveyard. And if you have Glow Up Bulb plus 1/1, you can discard the Glow Up Bulb, summon out Tuningware, then just summon the Glow Up Bulb back from the graveyard to make a Pot of Greed Formula Synchron. So super good play there. It's the extra level 1 tuner you need. There's nothing else that really compares to it, so that's good. It's off the ban list, so might as well run it. 1 Tuningware, very, very good card. Just makes so much advantage. Just pluses for days. If you use him to make Reagan, that's 3 draws at the least. If you have a Hyper Librarian up, that's 4 draws off your Reagan. So ludicrous right there. He also makes plays by acting as a level 2. So him plus Kashano will give you that really good Reagan. So he just makes so much advantage on his own. And a play I've been using a lot more recently is using 1/1 to summon out Tuningware from my hand, which the -1 from that play is offset immediately by the insane pluses that Tuningware is going to give you. So yeah, that's a play I've been using a lot recently that I didn't used to do before. Next up, we have Hat Tricker. Again, just an easy card to get out of your hand if you need more draws for Reagan. Level 4 too. He has an effect where if you take damage, you can put a counter on him, eat that damage up, and don't take it, and then, you just don't take the damage. So if you use Wear Earth Down, you're nearing the end of your turn, and you haven't seen 1 day apiece, just summon him out, have him eat the 2,000 damage. Against Burn too, you can just summon him out. They can't really summon anything to get over him, and you can just eat those counters, and eventually he'll get up to 3,300, so very good. Then Level Eater. Not much needs to be said about Level Eater. Just a recurable level 1 monster. It enables the Coral Dragon play, which I'll talk about once I get to the extra deck. Just very, very powerful card. Very powerful. So let's get back into the deck profile with the spells. First off, we have Soul Charge. No explanation needed. Need it for the triple Quasar play. But even so, it can make a single Quasar into a double Quasar. It can just save plays for days. Fixes bricks, stuff like that. But the only problem with it is, I call this card Troll Charge because it's always in the bottom 10 cards for some reason. But you know what? Doesn't matter. Next up, we have Upstart Goblin. No clue why it's limited, but I guess you just gotta play it, You just need that free draw. 1 day apiece, same reasoning, free draw. 1/1. Extremely good to pull Level Eater and Glow Up Bulb out of the deck. But it can also pull Chawa out of the deck if you need it to. If you need that extra Grimrose Search or stuff like that. But the most optimal use for this is pulling Tuningware out of the deck so you don't draw it. That's really the best way to use 1/1. Foolish Burial, dump the Glow Up Bulb or the Level Eater. Just easy peasy. That's all the limited spells. Moving on to the one-of spells, we got Where Art Thou. Where Art Thou is good because it sets up the Coral Dragon play, which I'll tell you about later, just trust me. It searches Level Eater, it searches any level 1. So if you just 1/1 into like a Tuningware, you can use Where Art Thou to search the level 1 tuner. It's great for pulling Chawas out of deck, which is really what you want to use it for. It does do 2,000 damage to you in the end phase if you don't summon it, but I mean, you're gonna summon it. I mean, you're either gonna summon it or dodge the damage with a 1 day apiece or Hat Tricker, so no real big deal there. Instant Fusion, no explanation. Double Summon, of course. Actually, you know what? I'll talk about Instant Fusion for a second because I'm doing this in depth. So double summon brings out Norden. I mean, instant fusion brings out Norden, obviously. And just one thing to note about Norden, if you make a synchro with Norden, then use desynchro on that synchro monster, Norden can revive another monster from graveyard. Just a very good play that a lot of people don't seem to know about. It's just kind of unintuitive. You'll, of course, see that if you're playing on Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro, but if you're playing this deck in real life, just know that rolling. And then we have double summon. Sometimes you just need one more summon, and double summon gives you that summon, so it's good for late combo when you have, like, when you're just like, oh, I have this Kashano kind of clogged in my hand, just double summon, bring it out. Pretty good. A great play with that is just a normal summon Tuningware, then double summon Kashano. Just really cheeky play. Then we have Ares Rock Sunrise. Summon back any beast from the graveyard. A lot of the times that's going to be Chawa, just to make level 5 synchro plays, especially Reagan. But if you run the Fabled Unicorn, you can bring that back too. And it lowers all monsters in your opponent's field by 200 attack for each beast type in your graveyard. So if you have, you know, 3 Chawas and like 2 Cerberels and a couple Nizuchis in there, you could be lowering monsters by up to like 1600 attack. And if your opponent drops like a Chaos Max or a Beals on you and they're just trying to sit on it, then that can do a lot to get over it in terms of Quasar's attack. It's a very good card. I would recommend running it. Just a free, essentially, Monster Reborn. Next up, we have Monster Slots. That's kind of my unconventional attack. If you don't know what Monster Slots does, you can target one monster you control and one monster in your graveyard, banish it to draw 1 card. You have to reveal it, and if it's the same level, you have to summon it. A lot of the time, I use this to like banish my dead Glow Bulb after I use its effect once. To get the extra draw if I have like a Chawa or a Level Eater on field. It just converts monsters you have in the graveyard that are kind of dead. You don't need like 3 Cerberels in the graveyard. You can just banish 1 to draw. So pretty good. What else? Also, if you have like a Librarian out and you've made 1 Quasar, you can target the Librarian and banish one of the Reagans you use to draw a card, so that's a very good combo. Also, if you pull off the Coral Dragon combo, you can banish Coral Dragon with that, because you're never going to desynchro a Stardust Charge Warrior. It's just not going to happen. So let's move on. For the 2 of spells, 2 Reincarnation. Probably the best use for Reincarnation is either flipping back Formula Synchrons to make them some more, or discarding like a Crus or a Ganasha or a Cerberel to add back, Grimro, because that gives you essentially a free Synchro summon. So very good for that. Next up we have the 3 ofs. 3 desynchro. Ludicrously powerful in this deck. Especially once you start getting like Librarian and Formula Synchron up, this card turns into Pot of Greed real quick. Or you can get multiple 4-draw Reagans off. It's insane, man. Also, as I said before, if you flip back a monster made by Norden, you get the Norden effect again, so that's good. So yeah, just insanely powerful. If you're running less than 3 desynchros, I don't know what's wrong with you, man. This card is just too powerful. Also, the most disrespectful play in this entire deck is to make a triple Quasar, and then flip back one of the Quasars and make a Quasar again for the quad Quasar play. Just insanely disrespectful. Your opponent will stare at you like, what are you doing, man? I love doing it. But yeah, and then 3 Dark World Dealings. Shaddoll and Burning Abyss aren't a thing anymore, so the only worry with activating Dealings is that your opponent sets up their grave a little bit, but if you have, 2 Quasars on the field, it doesn't really matter that much. So yeah, it helps you way more than it helps the opponent, so that's good. So that wraps up the main deck. 40 card main deck, of course. I wanted to run a 41 cards with Upstart. Alright, what's up guys? Sorry for a little shift in camera angle and zoom. I had to go and do something in real life. Had to go eat some dinner. But now I'm back and I can finish up this extra deck. First off, we have our Instant Fusion Target, one of the better cards in the entire deck. It was released a little bit ago, but it's still extremely meta relevant. We have the one and only Moki Moki King. Then we have ourselves 2 Formula Synchrons. Now, Formula Synchron, of course, he's a guy who lets you draw a card when he's summoned. If you have Librarian out, he very quickly turns into Pot of Greed, and he turns desynchros into Pot of Greed, so very good card. Then we have Mistbird Colossalus, and the reason why you run Colossalus is his effect is you can target one monster on the field, reduce its attack to 0, and negate its effects. So if your opponent has a huge beefy monster out, like, I don't know, a huge beefy monster that can be targeted, there's not a whole lot of examples of that, but maybe like a Slip Rider or something else. I'm sure you guys can think of an example. You can reduce it down to 0, but its bigger application is in negating battle immunity, so cards like Beals and Spirit Reaper and stuff like that. Just take its attack down to 0 and you take away its battle immunity, so very good. Very, very good. Then we have Armory Arm. He gives your Quasar an extra 1,000 attack, so that Quasar can attack over Chaos Max, it can attack over Ultimate Falcon, stuff like that, so very good card. Also, it frees up space on your field. If you're running out of field space, just consolidate these two down into a Armory Arm, equip it to the Librarian. Easy way to get a lot more space on your field. I've used that play many a time to save myself a lot of space. Also, we have the aforementioned Librarian. Of course, this thing can easily turn into like a plus 10 or 11 or even like a plus 20 if you're on a huge combo, man. It is ludicrously powerful in that regard. And then we have ourselves a nice little 3-piece of Reagan's. Reagan, if you don't know his effect, it's when he's summoned, you get to draw 2 cards, but it's optional. Well, not draw 2 cards. You get to draw until you have 2 cards left in your hand. So if you have 1 card, you'll draw 1 card. If you have 0 cards, you'll draw 2 cards, which you should have 0 cards most of the time. Your hand should be pretty empty. If you combine him with a Librarian, his effect, of course, is like the Nezushi combo we talked about. His effect goes on his Chain Link 2, Librarian's Chain Link 1. He'll resolve first, then you'll get Librarian's effect. If someone tries to shark you on that, you can now explain it to them. That's extremely relevant if you're playing in real life. But now let's get on to the big card that was added in the Dark Illusion. The Homeboy Coral Dragon. So Coral Dragon has an effect where you can discard 1 monster, discard 1 card from your hand, target 1 card on your opponent's side of the field and destroy it. And when it's sent to the graveyard, you can draw 1 card. Now this leads to an extraordinarily powerful play, where you summon out Coral Dragon, use its effect to discard the Level Eater, to pop a card in your opponent's field, or just get the Eater into the graveyard if you're going first. Eater will eat 1 level off the Coral Dragon, summon herself out, and then you sync these 2 for Stardust Charge Warrior. And Stardust Charge Warrior is a level 6 synchro. That's when it's summoned, you draw 1 card. So, for those of you doing some math, you'll draw 1 card off Coral Dragon, draw 1 card off Stardust Charge Warrior, and that's 2 draws. But you may be like, hold up, Shatner. What if you have Librarian out? Oh shoot, then you get an extra summon for Coral, an extra draw for Coral, and 1 more draw off of Stardust Charge Warrior. That means you're up to 4 draws. But, you know what? Level 6. You want to make 6, a level 4, a level 1, and another level 1. So if you do this combo here, this is the maximum number of draws you can get off of this. So if you have this field here, with Librarian, Tuning Wear, a level 1, and a level 4, you can sync these 2 up into Formula Synchron, draw 3 cards, sync these 2 up into Coral Dragon, then do that play, draw another 4 cards, you can get up to 7 draws off of this combo. So that's great. So you can get anywhere from 2 to 7 draws off of that combo alone. It's pretty ludicrous, I'm not going to lie. It really, really adds a lot of utility. It gives you second turn playability, because it gives you field removal aside from like Michael or Trish, which is really good. And then we move on to the Trish, the aforementioned Trish. Still a very powerful monster. When it's summoned, you can banish up to 1 card from hand, field, and graveyard. If someone tries to shark you and like, I don't have a hand, you can't do it, just mention them. It says up to 1, so that includes 0. You can reset her using Desynchro, just flip her back, summon all the monsters you used for her, and then go for her effect again, really good. Sometimes what I'll do is if I'm nearing a Quasar, I'll go for Trish first, and then Desynchro it, and then use the materials to make Quasar. It's really good. There's no rule on Desynchro that says you have to use the materials to make the same Synchro monster, so that's fine. And then next up, we have ourselves 1 empty field space because it was attacked over by Utopia the Lightning, and 1 Gamma Seal the Sea Turtle Kaiju. No, I'm kidding. I got 2 Quasars here. And you may notice that that's 14 cards, and that's because I didn't want to buy a 3rd Quasar. Just, I don't know, Quasar's kind of expensive. I'd be dropping 15 bucks on Quasars when I don't even play in real life. But if you want to build my deck as I play on Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro, you put a 3rd Quasar right here. As it is, I'm using Michael as a stand-in, but whatever. So that's the first way I'm going to show you to play this deck. Now, if you're a little bit more budget, right, and you kind of don't want to be dropping 15 bucks on Quasars, and you don't want to be dropping 30 bucks on Trish, and I do have an alternative for you. Where did I put that alternative? Ooh, Disorganized Shatner confirmed. Okay, here it is. You can take out Trishula, right? So Trishula, get rid of her, and the 3rd Quasar. Replace them with Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss and Red Dragon Archfiend. I just used Scarlet because I already had a copy from when I built that Yang Zing deck, but either one is relevant. You can pick up the original Red Dragon Archfiend for pennies, I'm sure. It can't be worth that much. It was a tin promo at one point. So Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss needs 1 tuner plus 1 Dark Synchro tuner, which is why I want this guy. And his effect is essentially a mini Quasar. You can target 1 card in the field and negate it once per turn, which is a really good effect. And the reason I suggest this is it's a lot cheaper than running Trish, and it's essentially a third Quasar. So instead of spending $35 on Quasar plus Trish, you could spend like $10 and get this combo here. Or if you're a really high roller, you could replace a third Quasar with a Crystal Wing. Doesn't matter. There's a lot of room for toying around with this extra deck. So yeah, that's the deck. Overall impressions, of course, I'm going to say I like the deck. I've been playing it for 2 years. It's a really powerful deck, and it does a whole lot. It got a whole lot more versatility with Coral Dragon. It's been a long time since I played this deck without Coral Dragon, man. I'm not going to lie. This deck just got so much more powerful when they added that in. But again, as I always say, it's a Glass Cannon deck. By Glass Cannon, I of course mean it'll go off turn 1 or it'll lose. There's not really any in between. You know, you don't have any recovery outside of Soul Charge, but if you're getting wrecked, Soul Charge isn't going to help you because you won't have the life points to deal with it. And you also just can't really rely on it to go off reliably. I'm testing it. This build tests at 63% first turn Quasar efficiency with a 5-card hand, so that's extremely good. I haven't tested it using going second, because that's just so hard to put into a scientific perspective, you know? There's no way to control what your opponent's going to do going second, so I'm not even going to bother testing it. But with a 6-card hand, you can obviously do a lot more shenanigans. I would recommend going second with this deck a lot, because Coral Dragon gives you some sustainability. You can pop your opponent's card, so it gives you kind of some pushback. Trish can, of course, do big damage if you go second. You can remove some of their graveyard resources. And, yeah, that's about all I wanted to say. Again, this deck is always improving, so when the new format drops, I'll do another list if this gets hit. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, have a wonderful time. This has been Shatter's Prodigy, signing out.